Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends, enemies, and comrades, I hope you're doing well wherever you are. This is Kenyan Revolutionary for another quick session. I just want to just speak about something very briefly. This morning, I had a really good exchange with, believe me or not, uh, a couple from Nepal. Um, it's so coming together for me individually. Um, I was in this shop that I usually go to, and I walked in there, and very quickly, I'll come to my point. Just walk with me for a second. So I walked in this place, and this lady, I've always seen him for a while. I always suspected that she was Indonesian. So today, after the news, that happened, this a couple of days with Nepal, doing whatever it was doing, and I also knew Indonesia had their own Gen Z uprising. So I felt like, maybe I should just, ask her what's going on, since she probably have, people back in their in their country, just to give me a little bit of, you know, a background of what's happening at on the ground. And when I approached it, I was like, hey, so I know you're from Indonesia somewhere. Like, what's going on up there? And she's like, I'm actually from Nepal, okay? And she was like, I was like, whoa, okay, so what's going on? So she started explaining to me the situation in Nepal, and the lady was with his husband there. They are a couple, and they explained to me basically what happened in Nepal, which was really interesting because I just had a discuss. I made a video yesterday trying to draw parallels between what's happening in Nepal, the Gen Zs in Nepal, and the Gen Zs in Kenya. Why the Kenyan Gen Z movement did succeed. And it's so funny. This lady was so knowledgeable because she was well aware of what happened in Kenya. Actually, she told me, she was like, well, because I told her, you know what, we had our own Gen Z movement in Kenya before you guys. So, but you guys, seem to have a really successful movement here, a protest. And she's like, you guys didn't do the job well. That's basically what she said. You guys didn't do the job well. And I congratulated her. She's very happy with what's happening in Nepal, in their home ground. And she explained to me that the current situation is that um, the president of or the prime minister of Nepal, who flee Alikimbia, okay, he already fled. Okay, he's in exile somewhere. Him, along with the head of the armed forces of Nepal, are in negotiations with the interim government, because apparently there's an interim government in place as we speak right now in Nepal. They haven't assumed power yet, but there's negotiations how there'll be hopefully a peaceful transition, democratic peaceful transition of power. Remember that term that Henry Kissinger used to use a lot of time. So basically, what she's saying that the head of the army and the head of the army and the exile prime minister of Nepal are in discussions with the interim government, or the upcoming interim government that's going to assume power very soon, to take over from, because right now there's chaos. There's nothing, as this lady explained for me. She's from Nepal, okay? She's from Nepal. Her along with her husband, they were explaining to me what's happening. And the reason why I'm saying this just is amazing, because all this time I thought this lady was from Indonesia. I've seen him here. I've never really talked to her. We just, say hi, and that's it. How's the weather? But today, when I engaged her, she started telling me this stuff, and I was like, whoa. But anyway, so she was explaining to me that there's an interim government that are having back channel discussions, negotiations with the exiled prime minister and the head of the army. Now, the role of the army, as it stands, is that they will be neutral, and their main task right now will be to make sure that there's peace, relative peace. Make sure security. People are not robbing, looting, and doing all that stuff, because as it stands, there's no government in place. There's chaos. But chaos, as far as, not like, okay, there's reports of crime, but it's not as bad. Okay, it's not as what people think. The only worry is that there's a political party that was the opposition that is actually taking advantage of the situation, and they're really targeting their political opponents. Okay, that's why you see some of these politicians' houses are being burnt down, and you know they're being attacked. Basically, that's what they're doing. But other than that, it's relatively peaceful. Of course, there's reports of crime because there's no, security structure in place. There's no the police. They've really just abandoned their position because, uh, you know, like I told you, remember the last video I made? I explained to you the situation where the police were shooting down people in hopes of, pacifying or maintaining control of the crowds, but they were overwhelmed by the Gen Zs, the protesters, and they gave up. They gave up their guns, they gave up their posts, they resigned. Some of them were parading in front of everybody, forced to march naked, and basically stripped of their power as police officers. So there's no security forces in place. That's why the Nepal army has now stepped in to actually maintain some level of security in the region. Okay, so that's what's happening. So that's what coming from this lady from Nepal. But the main news that is happening is that there's back channel discussions, diplomatic talks between the exiled prime minister, the army. They're having a discussion of how to hand over power to this interim government. Now, the reason why I want to maintain this, I want to emphasize on this interim government, is because there was a lot of questions when the Gen Zs of Kenya were discussing, okay, they were being asked, okay, okay, if you guys have a successful total overhaul of this ruling class, if we are able to take out Ruto and the executive branch and the legislative body and the judiciary, who will take power? That was the big question that a lot of people were asking the Gen Zs. Have you thought about this? And here it is. That's what I'm telling you about. And me, among other people, we kept on saying that, telling you guys, or proposing this idea of having an interim government. An interim government, main responsibility will to oversee the immediate need for a new IBC, constituted IBC. I'm not talking about the one that Ruto and Raila has just handpicked that are going to oversee the next presidential election in 2027. Okay, or have refused to actually oversee the impeachment of, the recalling of Esther Passaris and others. Okay, that's not the IBC I'm talking about. I've always maintained that in the event that the Gen Zs of Kenya pulls a Nepal, okay, where they are successfully take out the president, they take out the whole executive branch of government, and the National Assembly and the Senate and the judiciary, if they succeed in that ordeal, they should constitute an interim government, okay, that should oversee, okay, the immediate need for an IBC. So maybe this interim government can be in place for, 6 months or 90 days, just to make sure that a new IBC is reconstituted and leading up to the next general election, where we shall have new representatives, new president, and all that stuff. Okay, then we constitute a new, new justice, judges. Okay, whether it's Supreme Court, whatever. But anyway, before I get started, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, let's get started here. My name is David. I just said my name. Fuck. Kenyan Revolutionary. My name is Kenyan Revolutionary. Subscribe to my channel. I talk about Kenyan politics and world politics as related to Kenya. So go ahead and subscribe, share, like, comment, and do all the good stuff. Today, I want to talk about Nepal and Kenyan Gen Zs, okay? It's kind of a continuation of what I was talking about yesterday, but with kind of a few difference that we see, okay? But anyway, if this is your first time, like I said, I talk about Kenyan politics and world politics as it relates to Kenya. So if you like that kind of content, go ahead and subscribe, share, like, comment, and do all the good stuff. I'm your political dietitian. I will give you the nutrients that you need to help you navigate through the Kenyan politics and world politics so that you can have a better objective view of the world, okay? Now, with that said, if you've already subscribed, you know the first order of business is to like the video. Go ahead and like the video, share, subscribe, do all the good stuff. Let's get started. Nepal and Kenyan Gen Zs. So here's the thing, though. I just watched a short video that one of the journalists made about Nepal. He's a Nepalese. I don't know, Nepalian, whatever you want to call it. He's from Nepal. That's what I'm trying to say. And he brought attention to the root cause of this Nepal revolution that took place, that is taking place as we speak. And he highlighted the fact that we, or the Nepalese people, people of Nepal, should kind of look deeply into who is actually sponsoring this revolution. Now, he went ahead and broke it down. It's on my X page. If you follow me, Kenya Revolutionary on X, go to my X page, you'll see it. I think it's the latest one that I just reposted. You can watch the video. It's a 4-minute video. And he basically goes step by step by explaining how NGOs, non-governmental organizations, some of them being linked to the Western governments, okay? Like he gave an example of Barbara, the foundation in Nepal, and another one which I forgot, which is really deeply involved in Nepalian politics, okay? And that were, you know, of course, you know the drill. These NGOs always, they show up in these countries as they have a noble cause. They are about youth empowerment. They're about, you know, a healthcare issue or, you know, promoting democracy. You know the drill, okay? And basically his main thesis was that these NGOs, basically they fund such movements that sometimes ends up to what we saw in Nepal, okay? They basically foster, nurture, and make sure that, you know, if they don't agree with their government at hand, that's what we end up with. You know, they can basically destabilize the government, the administration of the day, and bring it down, makes it collapse in order for them to put in their own stooge. And it's so funny because the lady that I was talking to that was from Nepal was telling me the same thing, that now the West are trying to install their own puppet in Nepal because Nepal, well, she didn't tell me that part. I'm just referring to this video that I told you. It's on my X. Go follow me on X. Follow me there and you'll see I've reposted it on my page on X, formerly known as Twitter, which, because Nepal is a strategic country, Himalayan country, which sits between India and China. And with the tariffs now that's happening, you know, Russia growing by the day, like Russia is really growing its wings. The BRICS nation, the West is basically falling. France is like in tatters right now. I mean, Macron will be lucky to be president by next month, and all this stuff, okay? But what I'm saying is this: the reason why these NGOs have infiltrated and have partnered with the youth of the country, of course, the youth have a noble cause. They're fighting corruption. They're fighting the injustice. They're fighting what they view as, you know, these governmental officials that have been letting them down. So, something similar to Kenya, okay? But they've partnered with these NGOs being the financial muscle that are driving the banners, the propaganda machine, okay? The people to go to the streets, you know, to destabilize this government. Now, just to take you back, I've always spoken about this. If you read that book by John Perkins, a former CIA guy who works for IMF, World Bank. He mentioned this is the soft way of what they call soft coup d'etat. Okay, basically they use NGOs like what's the aid that Trump just ended? What is it called? That the one that was in Kenya. I forgot what it's called. Whatever, American aid. I forgot what it's called. Okay, but basically, what I'm trying to say is that the CIA through these NGOs like George Soros and others, okay, they use these NGOs in the name under the guise of youth empowerment, women empowerment, and all this empowerment nonsense, fighting cholera, whatever the case is, okay. But they use this organization to funnel funds to actually promote or have a propaganda machine behind. If they don't like the regime of the day, that's how they kind of nurture and foster and build up resentment that actually turns out to be a popular revolution against the regime of the day. A perfect example of this was Mossadegh of Iran back in 1958, is it? Don't quote me on that, 1952 or something like that, when Mossadegh, was removed. Actually, this was a MI6 and CIA movement. They actually went there and funneled money through different organizations to fund the local activists to bring down Mossadegh's regime. Because Mossadegh, he basically kicked out the British, kicked out the Americans, and said that you should, and he nationalized all the oil in Iran. Okay, saying that Iran will depend on itself. And the Americans and the Iranians did not like that. So they, using the CIA, and this is documented, there's numerous books that have written about that. One is called All the Shah Men, But anyway, they used the NGOs to bring down Mossadegh through a popular revolution. And they installed Shah, the Shah who became the king or whatever the case is, who was friendly to the British and handed over all the oil and natural resources back to the British and the Americans. And he was very fond of the Americans and the British. He had a very close ties to them. And we know that what happened with the Islamic Revolution in Iran. I don't have to walk you through this. I'm just giving you an example of how the NGOs plays a pivotal role to bring down any administration that the West deem not to be playing to their tune, okay? So this was the case also. But anyway, this guy from Nepal, and I'm relating this to Kenya. I'm coming to Kenya, so I want you to keep your mind on that. Nabal, I see you. Like the video. Thank you so much. So anyway, this guy was saying that, listen, this NGO, the Barbara Foundation and other foundations, they partnered with the local Gen Zs in the name of youth empowerment programs, okay? And they did what they did, continued the propaganda, and given the fact, geez, I had something ring. I thought I was getting shot, but but anyway, so they did that, and eventually it culminated to what we are seeing in Nepal, which is a popular revolution, and it's happening right now. Now, the question in Nepal right now, okay, now that I've mentioned that there's a discussion, back channel negotiation between the army, the exiled prime minister, and the interim government, as far as, handing over power totally. The worry that the people of Nepal have is they do not want to be stooges. They want Nepal to remain sovereign. You understand what I'm saying? They don't want these NGOs to fund their own puppets, a Western stooge that will be in place, okay? Go watch that video. I think video will kind of open your eyes. But let me take you to Kenya, because there's so much similarities. Like I say, we can draw parallels between the Gen Zs of the Kenyan Gen Zs and the Nepal Gen Zs, okay? So let me take you to Kenya in a minute. Sorry, so Okay, so in Kenya, I've always told you that Kenya has 4 levels of deception. 4 levels that the Gen Z who are truly trying to revolutionize the system must actually bust through these 4 levels of deception. And I've mentioned deception 1 is the people at the top that we know, the root of the political class that we actually see that have by and large have become very irrelevant. They're there, they are in our faces every day, but they already understand they are unpopular and nobody believes anything they have to say. And these guys I'm talking about are the political class, your yesteryear's politicians, legacy politicians as we call them. Okay? The Uhuru Kenyatta, Raila Odinga, Ruto, Martha Karua, Wamalwa, Matiangi, Gachagua, these idiots, okay? But they still play an important role in maintaining the status quo, because their main agenda, they know that they're irrelevant, they know that they won't be voted in, they know that they're unpopular, they know that their time is up, but the main role that they play is to appeal to the tribal, ethno-political division that exists in Kenya. The historically known ways of voting pattern, okay? Because if you look at Wamunyoro, that's why somebody like Achagua is a useful idiot, very useful, because he plays a huge part by galvanizing, making, turn up, okay? He's turning up the notch, turning up a notch, the tribal division that we have exist in Kenya by positioning himself as unapologetically pro-Kikuyu hero, okay? Basically the face of the Kikuyu nation, okay? The Mount Kenya nation, as he called himself, Wamunyoro, okay? And of course, Raila Odinga is still at the helm, or is still in the frame, because he represents what is perceived to be the Luo Nyanza bloc, who historically are always at odds with the Kikuyu politically, given the fact that Jomo and Oginga Odinga had their difference back then in 1960s. So that's the role of this political class, these legacy politicians, as we call them. That's the first layer of deception. They are there to maintain that, to continue to try to maintain that difference, appeal to your ethnic sensibilities, if you will, okay? Have you see things through your ethno-political prism. They don't want you to look at issues as they are. For example, the economy, they don't want to look at you to look at economy as a result of lack of, failed policies, corruption, and everything else, theft, basically, or incompetence in the case of others, like, you understand? But they want you to believe that it is this tribe led by this tribal chieftain who is stealing money. So ni wale watu ambao wanakula. You see what I'm saying? That's why you see the people like Alomas speak very loudly, talking about, oh, we've been marginalized, but finally President Ruto is looking out for us. And then you have Wamunyoro on their side who's screaming, bleating about how Kikuyu politicians are being ostracized, kicked out of the cabinet, and all this stuff, all right? So that's the role of this, the first level of deception, okay? Then the second level of deception is the people that they're putting in place, the so-called, these flat-footed pretenders that are within the political system, but they're playing the role of renegades, the Babu Owino, the Sifunas, the Wamuchomba, these useful idiots. They're pretending to be the new, fresh mavericks. They're the ones who they're acting as if they're branching off the first layer of deception. They're, oh, we are not part of them. We are not agreeing with our party leaders, whatever the case is. So we are thinking about starting our own political party. But they're speaking the same language as their bosses, telling you, just hold on. We are going to wait till 2027 so that we can remove Ruto. That's basically what they're saying. But they're working together. That's the level of deception. So that way, to fool the people to think that, you know what? Yes, we don't like Raila's and Sifuna's. Raila's and Ruto and Gachagua. But you know what? Babu Owino and Sifuna and Wamuchomba and Dindi Nyoro, they speak my language. They're younger. They've seen the nonsense with this political, their political chairman or whatever, head of their political parties. So they're starting their own. They're renegades. So let's vote for them. They are, unaona vile nani ananinio, anafinya, injecting. Such stupidity. But these people are nothing but the second level of deception. They're pretending to be renegades, bringing something new, but they're really not. And the reason is evidenced by the fact that they haven't resigned from their respective political party. That's number one. And number two is the fact that they're telling you that the only way to take out Ruto is for us to wait to go to the ballot through an already rigged system, given an IBC that has already been compromised, to cast your vote and remove Ruto through that voting process, while Ruto himself will be doing the counting of the votes. See what I'm saying? That's the second level of deception. The third level of deception is the people I call the activists. The activists, the Boniface Wangi, the Hanifas, the Martha Karuas, who also is doubling between the two, okay? The Hussein, I don't know, Ahmed, whatever here, Hanifa, Kasmuel Makoure, Morara, Kop Shakur, whatever the case is. You Kiom Tata, you know, these are the third level of deception. Listen, the whole point of these levels of deception is designed to scatter the Gen Z from coming together and pulling what has happened in Nepal. Karibu sana Ani nakuona hapo. Nice seeing you. Okay? That is the point. The whole point of these levels of deception is to do what? To make sure that the youth, the Gen Zs, do not come together, rally around, discuss the issues that is affecting the country, because these issues are tied to these dunderheads that are in power. And they understand that if the Gen Zs of Kenya come together, the Gen Zs of Mount Kenya, Gen Zs of Nyanza, Gen Zs of Eastern, Gen Zs of Coast, Gen Zs of all across the country come together, they shall have something similar to Nepal. So now they have these Okiom Tatas with the people like Jimmy Wanjigi in Safina Party talking that good talk, speaking sweet things to your ear, talking about the debt that they are incurring from the IMF illegally, talking about the injustice, about this what, blah, 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 the corruption that is taking place, praying for the past this I believe it. I don't think it will go on. I'm coming to that, Annie. Thank you so much for nice seeing you, my friend. So, you know, so they're coming to do that. That is the whole point of these levels of deception. It is a method used to divide people up. So the older folks, think about it. The first level that I mentioned, the Raila Odingas and all these Karuas and Gachaguas and the Rutos, these people are using the old method. And it is designed to lure the old people. Because wale wazee, they're still stuck in that, like the Haman Manyoras. If you hear them talking, they're talking about, oh, we are very tribal. We'll never graduate from this tribal politics. We'll never consider issues without consider our tribal implications. Okay? That's how they look at things. And they're stuck in that thought. And those old politicians, that level of the first level of deception, the Raila Odingas, the yesteryears, legacy politicians, that's their role. To capture that demography, okay? Then the second one is aimed at the millennials, because millennials, they're kind of split. Some, they can see the bullshit from the legacy politicians, but they're not quite sure with the Gen Zs. They think the Gen Zs are too risky. Okay? But they are with the Gen Zs. So the Sifunas and Babu Owinos and Wamuchomba and Ndindi Nyoro, who are all millennials, are designed to capture that demography. Okay? Then the next one, which is the Casmuels, the Okiom Tatas, the Jimmy Wanjigis, who are talking all these nice things, okay? Talking about all this, oh, our debts, they were incurred illegally, all this, whatever. They are geared towards the Gen Zs. Now, remember, if you think about it, someone like Wamunyoro, Gachagua, plays a pivotal part in this whole movement because his main aim, him, Gachagua, and the ODM folks, they're doing what? They're doing what? They're dividing people along tribal lines. Him, Raila, and all this stuff. The Babu Owino and Wamuchombas and Sifuna and Ndindi Nyoro are splitting the millennials, trying to convince them, hey, listen, we are the new, we understand those old folks are still stuck on that tribal stuff, but we can see their bullshit. So come vote for us. Then the Casmuels, those are designed to split the Gen Zs. Oh, you know what? We went out there and most of us got killed. So we need a political party in order to remove Ruto because we tried going to the streets and we ended up dead. You understand? So that's why you see Kasmuel is coming. In order to take power, we have to have a political party, which is a bunch of nonsense. You do not need a political party in order to take power back to the people. The people can exercise their sovereign rights by directly representing themselves. You understand what I'm saying? So that's what I'm trying to say up here. So when you hear this Willis Otieno or Casmuel or Omtata telling you that, oh, 2027 we shall have a political party where we shall remove Ruto, that is a bunch of hogwash. It's nonsense, it's bullshit. Turn your TV off, turn your internet off. That is nonsense. The people can either exercise their power indirectly or directly. We've already tried indirectly through this delegated power to the president, executive branch, legislative branch, and the justice system. It has failed. So it is time to actually do it directly, like the people of Nepal. Understand what I'm saying? So don't wait for these people to try to tell you that you need a political party in order to shift the power back to the people. The political party only cares about itself and its members. And it has been proven since independence in 1963 that there's no successful political party in Kenya. They're all corrupt. They're all interrelated. It's an incestuous relationship between all these parties. It is a bunch of scum. So don't fall for it. You do not need, I'll repeat again for those sitting at the back, you do not need a political party to shift power back to the people. The people can organize themselves without a political party, without any party affiliation, any ethnic affiliation, any leader, and exercise their power as it is constituted in our 2010 constitution, and remove Ruto and the whole legislative body and the judicial, and all the independent bodies that we have in the constitution. You understand what I'm saying? So when you listen to Caswell telling you that you need a political party, because that's his main shtick, he's full of shit. He'll tell you that, oh, I joined ODM because I realized that the only way we can actually take power is if you get into a political party. So I decided to join ODM because ODM is the longest serving, I don't know, existing nonsense. ODM is a terrorist organization. I'll tell you that right now. They've been intimidating, killing, maiming, beating people in Luo Nyanza. It's documented. It's not even funny. With the Ayatollah of Opoda sitting at the top, Raila Odinga. Same with all this UDA with Ruto, or URP, or TNA with Kenyatta and all these idiots in Jubilee. So don't fall for this nonsense. You do not need political party in order to exercise your power. The people just have to come together. Now, the fourth level of deception is in the meta space, the internet. That's where you find the Hanifas also. Okay? So where they tweet and they have a following, these are the influencers, the political influencers online. Because majority of the Gen Zs have their communication online. Even the Nepali, the people of Nepal, the Gen Zs of Nepal, most of their communication, their organizing and their agitation happen online. That's why the government actually had to shut down the internet when things got hot. So when they shut down the internet, the Gen Z said, we are going to the streets because you've shut down the internet. So that's the fourth level of deception. The influencers on the internet, and they are designed to target the Gen Zs because that's where majority of the Gen Zs actually do their politicking, their organization, their strategizing, their brainstorming. So you have people who infiltrated the spaces, X spaces, or whatever the case is, TikTok, whatever the case, post things, get involved in these discussions, but they deviate. They have a hidden agenda. You understand what I'm saying? So that's how they actually do it. That's the fourth level of deception that are designed to pacify the Gen Z movement from doing what the Nepal Gen Zs did or are doing. And majority of these people are actually funded by the NGOs like Boniface Mwangi, Hanifa, and others, Martha Karua. That's why they usually hang out together as a clique. So those are the four levels of deception that are used to do what? To pacify the Gen Z movement in Kenya. And they are working very hard in it. That is why Kenya has not been able to successfully have a revolution like the one in Indonesia, Bangladesh, and Nepal. Mnaelewa? Because you've been divided up through these four tiers of deception that are put in place. So now that the Kenyans have seen tumeangalia vile my friend Annie was telling me about Cherargei proposing a new bill, okay? A 7-term deal, whatever, okay? I won't go much into that, but the emphasis that I want to make is this. Recognize this 4 levels of deception that is being used to pacify the Kenyan Gen Zs. So how do you deal with it? How do you deal with this 4 level of deception? You deal with it by sticking to the issues and putting emphasis in the need for an immediate revolutionary movement akin to the one in Nepal. Every time Okiya Mtata comes and tells you about how much debt Kenya is in, or Jimmy Wanjigi comes in with how much debt or borrowing we are doing, or illegal borrowing we are doing, remind them that the only way you can actually reverse what they're talking about is if you have power back to the people. So that can be done. And the only way to do that is not to wait till 2027 to participate in an election that has already been rigged. The referee, the IBC chairperson, commissioners, handpicked by Ruto and his cohorts and Raila Odinga, and expect to have a favorable outcome. Remind them of that. Every time they tell you about all these wonderful things, they mention corruption, tell them stop. We are past that. The only resolution is to have a total overhaul of the system, and the only way to do that is through a revolution like the one that is happening in Nepal, where the executive branch is taken down and the legislative branch is taken down. Anything else is a bunch of joke, not so funny jokes. That's the only way we can actually get out of this thing. Because these guys will come up and tell you how much money has been stolen, and they'll quote the new Auditor General and tell you how much the corruption is happening in Busia, and they'll tell you how much. We are tired of hearing it. The same thing with Gachagua. We are tired of hearing about Ruto stealing money, being involved in terrorism in Sudan, what. We are tired of hearing about it. The solution is not 2022 voting Ruto out and putting Matiang'i in there. The solution is Nepal. People going to the streets and removing Ruto through a popular revolution, removing all this legislative branch and all these governors and MCAs, and starting afresh by choosing a new interim government to oversee the next election. But the people have to be forefront in this. You can't wait till 2027. So anyone, whether it's Okiya Mtata, whether it's Kasmuel, whether it's Willis Otieno, whether it's all these people who are talking all these nice things, if the resolution that they're proposing has something to do with 2027, shut them down. Tell them, I don't want to hear about anything. You're part of the problem. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends and comrades, I'll leave it here. My name is Kenyan Revolutionary. I'll leave it here. Annie, nice seeing you. I will probably have another session later on today or tomorrow. Laban, nice seeing you. Like, share, subscribe. Do all the good stuff. Follow me on X, see all the stuff that I was talking about. And I'll see you guys later. Peace and blessings. I'm out.